Welcome to the Summit AVL instructional video series. In this video, we will be going over our lights program and what we do here over at this computer. So, going over to the computer, we can see that there is this V-looking program down here called Byron. We'll go ahead and click on that. That is what we use to control all of our lights. It will take a few minutes to load up because it is an old computer. Now once it is finished loading up, we will see this screen pop up. We can go ahead and click Open Summit. Take a little bit of time, and then the screen pops up. So we'll go ahead and put this in the top, make it fill the whole space just to make it easier to see. Now let's take a quick tour of Byron. On the left over here, we see our cue lists. We have our Jesus is Better, Ignite, a standalone service, and a worship night. All of these can be changed and added to and subtracted based on our sermon series. So I have Jesus is Better for our Jesus is Better sermon series. Now when we click on a cue list, we see all of these different things come up. They're all cues, is what they're called, for lights. Up here on the top, we have a toolbar, save, new, open. We really don't use these a whole lot besides save and sometimes open. And then over here on the top left are these icons. We switch generally between fixture user and playback. Playback is the one that looks like a playlist with all the cue lists and the cues. Fixture chooser is a digital representation of all the lights that we have with their labels and where they are physically in the room in regards to where the stage is. And that just helps us be able to pick the right lights that we want to work with when we're working with them. So one of the first things that you want to do when you arrive here is you want to go ahead and make sure that the touchscreen panel that is over here, the back, it has 4 options on it. So what you want to go ahead and do is once the lights have all been turned on and everything is ready to go on the bottom, there's a button that says off. So we'll turn off all of the house lights, and that's just fine. And then we'll go back over to the sound panel here, or the lighting board here, and we'll make sure that we can see that the far left fader, these faders are all up over here, and that these 2 faders are up as well. These don't really ever get touched, but those are the important pieces of what it is that we are working with. So back over here on the computer, if we click on the console icon up here in the top left, we see a visual representation of that console. So if we were to slide down this fader, we can see that one move, that one's moving, that one's moving. You won't be able to see it on this video too well, but over here on the computer, you can see that this one is labeled Jesus is B, Jesus is Better, Standalone, and Ignite. So these faders each control the master level of each one of these cue lists. So you always want to make sure that those are always up. These 2 just control which one is currently on. So just make sure that those are always up as well. So going back to the cue list over here, we'll make sure that Jesus is Better is selected. We'll go ahead and click on the practice icon just to get some lights up on in here. So you can see now that the lights have changed. Lights are on, the stage is lit, we can sort of see some things up there. That is the scene that will be used for when the band is practicing. As soon as practice is over, we can go ahead and click on Walk In and change it to that. All the house lights are on, allows the stage to look nice, but it's not lit up all the way. It's not distracting when people are walking in. We go to intro video, things get dark. Welcome, when the worship leader is welcoming everybody. Worship yellow corresponds to the background slide used in ProPresenter. So does worship blue. We can see the colors of the lights changing on the stage. Offering video is only used sometimes. It'll dim the lights in the house and on the stage so that the video can be seen. And then offering brings those lights back up, but lights up the front stage where a speaker might be. We don't always use that. Sometimes it just stays on worship blue if one of the worship leaders is doing the prayer for the offering. And then we'll jump to worship red. And these can all be clicked on in any order. They don't need to be in order. You can go wherever you want, and they all will work that way. So usually we'll jump from worship blue to worship red, which is the third song, third background slide on ProPresenter. And then sometimes we have a baptism. That'll bring up a light over on the left side of the stage. And then back to worship red. Announcements is after the prayer, before the announcements have started. If somebody is praying, like if the host comes up and they're praying, don't go to announcements quite yet. Leave it on worship red during that prayer time, and as soon as they say amen, then you can switch to announcements. And then once they say, please stand and pass the peace with one another, and they start to walk off the stage, go ahead and go to pass the peace. It darkens the stage so the band can shuffle off. And then the house lights come up so everybody can see each other. Bumper video, same thing. Dims the lights. People know, okay, it's time to sit down. Sermon is starting. Sermon lights up the stage a little bit, lights up the speaking stage. Worship gray corresponds to the last worship background slide. Dismissal is the benediction time, where the band is still lit up a little bit, and then walkout is the same as walk in, actually. So that's a general run through of a service, just so you can see all of the change in the lights, making sure that all of the faders are all the way up, and you can see that is green. That's because there is something triggered, or one of the cues are triggered in that playlist. If we were to go to Ignite, or now that we released it, it's now red. If we were to go to Ignite and do practice, go back to that, you can see that is green now as well. So you might have been wondering, what the heck did I just do? This button at the very top, release, releases all of the lights, or in other words, turns them all off. So whatever scene is clicked in any of these, it will release that. Now let's say you have some things going on over here at Ignite, but you want to release everything that's happening in Jesus is Better. This release at the top will clear all of the cue lists. This one at the top here of the cue list over here will release whatever cue list is currently selected, and then whatever else is left will stay. So now let's look at the fixture chooser window a little bit. Up here on the top we see these tabs. These are all correspondent to the various cue lists that we have over here. If for some reason one of them is not here and you want to work on that one, click on this open button, and then all of the available cue lists will come up here. Click on the one that you want, and then it will open. Now we don't ever work in live because that overrides anything that is happening in one of the cue lists. So we do not work in live. Always make sure that you are selected on the cue list you want to be working on, as well as the cue or the scene that you want to be working on. So let's say we want to change, or we want to add an extra thing to the back of walkout. So what we can do, I don't know if you saw me do it there, is we can click on walkout and then drag it over so that little red bar pops up, and then it will duplicate it. So we can click on walkout, we'll type in video test. Now we see these fixtures are all lit up in some areas and not in others, but there's no lights on the stage because all of these are not triggered. So what we can do is we can hit play, and it will go through practice, and we can hit play again, and it will take its time going through them, or we can hit this skip, and it will quickly jump to the next scene. So we'll skip our way all the way down to video test. So whichever one is highlighted with blue, or the most last one highlighted with blue, is the one that is currently being worked on. So video test is worked on right now. So let's say we want to change the, we'll turn these off. These are the ones that you can kind of see at the top of the stage that just turned off. So let's change the stage color lights to red. So we'll highlight the stage left, and center right, and stage right LEDs. And we can drag the colors around, and you can see the colors changing on stage. let's make them really dark blue. We'll get rid of this cross light. And let's say we want to make these back lights red. Now you'll see that just because I move the color and they're not on, you need to change the intensity. So you can either drag it to make them dim, or far to make them bright, or you can just quickly turn them on and off by clicking the jump buttons there. Same with any light. Most lights, or actually all of these lights, have varying intensity levels. So now say we want to turn on some spotlights. We'll turn on keys worship, M worship spot, F worship spot, and lead guitar worship. And these don't have colors. Not all these spots do not have colors, only the LEDs and the LED Colorados. All of the spots are just white. So those you can only control the intensity of. So we'll bring the intensity up all the way. We can set it at like 50, 60, something like that. Drag it around, find a good spot for it. And then these are the house lights. So we can control the house lights as well. We can set them lower for worship, or higher for like passing the peace or sermon, or like in the middle somewhere for like an offering time, or turn them all the way off for video, turn them all the way up for when people are walking in and out. So these all correspond to where they physically are in the hanging rails up above the stage. So you'll know these ones are over on the left side, these ones are in the middle, these are on the right. These are across the middle of the stage, these are across the back of the stage, so on and so forth. So we'll go back to here, go ahead and hit release, turn everything off, and that is what we do with Vista over here. Now one more thing that is run off of this computer is Spotify. We don't use that on the Pro Presenter computer, we use that on this one actually. So just make sure that Spotify is open. On the left here you can scroll down to Sunday morning, scroll up to the top. Once it loads, and then just hit play and make sure that shuffle and repeat are on, and then whoever is running sound will control how much sound actually comes out of the system or not. This always stays playing. We don't ever turn it off. We also don't ever turn off the lights program. We always leave that on as well. Thank you so much for watching the lights training video for Summit AVL. We thank you for what you do. Thank you for how you serve our church, and we are really appreciative of you. Thank you so much.